The long-awaited day arrives, and Chinatsu moves into her new home. Taiki's family gathers to welcome her, and everyone agrees that she's polite, pretty, and brings a fresh sense of joy to the house. However, Taiki finds himself struggling to process the situation. Seeing Chinatsu in casual clothes, walking through the hallways and interacting with his family feels overwhelming. He can't help but wonder if he'll have to live with her until graduation, and despite taking the first steps toward establishing a relationship, he suddenly feels out of his depth. The door to his room opens, and it's Chinatsu, freshly out of the bath. She informs him that the bathroom is now free, and as Taiki looks at her, he realizes she appears even more beautiful post-bath. Nervously, he tries to divert his attention by pretending to read a magazine. Noticing it's the latest issue of Jump, Chinatsu mentions that she hasn't had a chance to read it yet due to the move. He offers her the magazine, and he notices her gaze fixed on him. Chinatsu admits feeling relieved. She was scared of living with strangers, but knowing that her training partner lives there and that they share similar tastes makes her feel more at ease. The next day at practice, Taiki is buzzing with energy. Kyo notices his friend's excitement about spending time with Chinatsu, but warns him to keep it a secret. Chinatsu has many admirers, and if they find out about Taiki's advantage, it might lead to trouble for him. Despite the warning, Kyo tells Taiki he's lucky because this is a fast track to building a relationship. However, Taiki feels unworthy to ask her out directly and resolves to improve his skills to make it to the national competitions. Kyo realizes that Taiki is pushing himself hard, knowing that only a few make it to nationals and that his skills might not be enough. Still, Taiki insists that it's worth the effort. After another round of practice, Taiki asks Kyo for one more match, but Kyo wants to take a break. While Kyo goes to get water, another friend comes over to play. Hina approaches Kyo and mentions how enthusiastic Taiki seems lately. Kyo explains that Taiki has set a new goal, making it to nationals. Hina laughs, acknowledging Taiki's limited skills, but Kyo counters that the most determined people are the ones who achieve their goals. At home, Taiki embarks on a new, grueling exercise routine. Exhausted, he collapses on the floor and watches a video of himself training on his phone. He knows his skills need significant improvement if he wants to make it to nationals. Chinatsu finds him and asks what he's watching. Embarrassed, he admits it's a training video. When she asks to see it, he hesitates, feeling ashamed. Chinatsu surprises him by admitting she often watches him during practice. Finally, he relents and shows her the video. She watches in awe and praises his speed and agility, but Taiki downplays it, insisting he lacks the natural movement needed for the game. He realizes he's inadvertently confessed his plans for the future and tries to backtrack, not wanting her to know until he has shown some results. Chinatsu, however, has heard him and isn't going to let it slide. She asks if he's not planning to go to nationals with her after what she said when she learned about her parents' move. Taiki gives in and admits he is aiming for nationals. Chinatsu tells him to wait a moment, leaves the room, and returns seconds later with a woven bracelet. She explains that she made it when she decided to stay in Japan to turn her determination into something tangible, and she offers it to him. Without hesitation, Taiki takes the bracelet and ties it around his ankle, believing this gift will be something he treasures forever. Noticing he's tied it too tightly, Chinatsu helps him adjust it, asking him to make it to nationals too. After securing it, she reveals that she wears an identical bracelet on her ankle. She bids him goodbye and leaves. As Taiki looks at the bracelet, he resolves to train hard enough that it wears out and falls off. He realizes that if this continues, he will definitely fall in love with her. To combat distracting thoughts, he decides to do 30 sit-ups each time he gets sidetracked. The next day, Taiki prepares to leave early. Chinatsu notices and asks if he's heading out so soon. He explains that he has to assist with organizing events during spring break. She wishes him luck as he leaves. At school, Taiki is caught doing his sit-ups as a form of punishment. Hina sees him and, confused, asks if something happened between him and Chinatsu. Taiki tries to evade the question, but Hina presses for a confession, sensing his discomfort. Knowing Hina will get excited about the plot and tell everyone if she finds out what's going on, Taiki heads to the lockers, with Hina trailing closely behind. There, they unexpectedly run into Chinatsu, who hands Taiki his wallet, mentioning he left it at home. Taiki exclaims in surprise, thanking her as he thought he'd lost it. Realizing Hina is present and could misunderstand the situation, his sudden and nervous reaction seems a bit harsh to Chinatsu. Meanwhile, Hina is touched by the apparent progress of her friend. At lunch, Taiki shares the incident with Kyo, Kyo understands it was a mistake and suggests that Taiki should have asked Chinatsu to keep their living arrangement private. He warns that if Taiki keeps trying to hide it, she might think he doesn't like living with her. A teacher interrupts their lunch, asking for help to carry some chairs to a room. Noticing they don't have enough people, he calls on Chinatsu and Hina, who are passing by, to assist. Everyone grabs chairs, and Taiki feels the urge to fix things. The last thing he wants is for Chinatsu to think he wants nothing to do with her. He offers to carry a couple of her chairs, but she curtly refuses. Taiki realizes the situation is worse than he thought. She seems to want to pretend they don't know each other at all. Meanwhile, Hina is thoroughly enjoying the drama. On the way to the room, she asks Chinatsu directly if she has a boyfriend. Chinatsu replies that she doesn't. Taiki can't believe how shameless Hina is being, but Hina presses on, asking if Chinatsu isn't interested in having a boyfriend. Chinatsu explains that for now, she's just focused on basketball. Hina feels like her little soap opera just hit a dead end. They arrive at the room to deliver the chairs and meet a man who asks if they're part of the club. Taiki explains that they were just helping out during their lunch break. The man, impressed by their willingness to help, introduces himself as Inomata and mentions that Taiki's coach has spoken highly of him, showing surprise at Taiki's progress. Inomata assures Taiki that if he keeps it up, he'll soon be playing at the high school level and that they're counting on him for the team in the nationals qualifiers. Ecstatic, Taiki glances at Chinatsu to see her reaction to the good news, but she turns away and walks off indifferently. Hina asks Kyo what's going on between Taiki and Chinatsu, sensing that Chinatsu seems to hate him. Kyo, however, thinks they make a great couple. Back at practice, Taiki, upset, takes out his frustration on his teammates. Suddenly, there's a crash in the gym, and Taiki sees Chinatsu on the ground. They help her up and it seems she's fine. Kyo notices Taiki's worried expression and reminds him that he can't approach her to check if she's okay, since they're pretending not to know each other. In the locker room, Chinatsu is filling her water bottle. Taiki gathers his courage and approaches her, asking if she's okay. She seems surprised to see him and questions why they aren't pretending not to know each other. He apologizes, explaining he's just embarrassed about living together, especially since she's so popular. He worries that if people find out, it could become a scandal. Much more relaxed, Chinatsu asks if that's all that's bothering him. She reveals that she thought he liked Hina because he'd been acting strangely whenever Hina was around, asking about boyfriends as if he wanted advice. Understanding his reasons, Chinatsu agrees to keep her distance, even considering living in the shed or finding a cheap room nearby. Taiki chuckles, calling her silly and laughing at the idea. At that moment, Hina walks into the locker room and sees them sharing this moment. After practice, the coach announces that trials for the team playing in the qualifiers will start soon. Kyo tells Taiki that if he wants to make it to nationals, his first step will be to beat his teammate Haryu, a second year and the third-ranked player on the team. Taiki knows it's something within his reach. As they look around, they notice far more spectators than usual. Kyo comments that they all have hidden motives. Taiki realizes they came to see Chinatsu, while others are there to watch Hina, who's doing rhythmic gymnastics. Hina's coach praises her, and her teammates mention that Hina once placed 4th in nationals, and that her father was on Japan's national team. Hina notices her friends watching and charges them 2,000 yen for the show. Taiki refuses to pay. Hina jokes about how passionately he was watching her, trying to tease him into admitting it. Taiki attempts to argue back, but when he notices Chinatsu watching him, he decides to show off his training instead. On the way out, Taiki reflects on needing to be more mindful of his behavior so he doesn't confuse Chinatsu. Just then, Hina surprises him by asking what he's doing there since he lives in the opposite direction. She mentions she's going to see a chiropractor near his house. Taiki realizes that if Hina sees Chinatsu entering his house, it could create a scandal. Luckily, Chinatsu is still at school, but he needs to distract Hina. Taiki tries to hurry her along, but she gets easily distracted. At one point, she stops to look longingly at some taiyakis. In an effort to speed things up, he offers to buy her one, but she refuses, though it's clear she wants it. Hina explains that she can't consume any more calories as she meticulously plans her diet. She knows exactly how many calories taiyakis contain and maintains strict control to avoid compromising her gymnastics abilities. Taiki discovers a side of his friend he didn't know. He acknowledges her talent and admits that thinking about the differences between someone as strong as her and someone as ordinary as him makes him anxious. Still, he expresses admiration for her hard work. She tells him he's being too sentimental, but admits she's impressed with him too. She's noticed his interest in Chinatsu and acknowledges that it's a tough goal. Regardless, as his best friend, she's willing to help him in any way she can. Now, it's Taiki's turn to tell her she's being too sentimental. In the distance, he spots Chinatsu walking very close to his teammate Haryu.